sports conversation with James Navalance on the Believe Network. Joining us today, Joe DiTullio of the Game House. You're my guy. I appreciate you coming on, Joe.
Yeah, anytime. Good talking to you, man.
Absolutely. So just give kind of the audience a general background of your experience and kind of how you've gotten up to the point and where you're at in your career.
Yeah, so I went to college at Xavier University in Cincinnati and decided to go there because they had a good sports management program and graduated and everything. Got to the point where I kind of found out it's really hard to get a job in sports, especially if you don't have all the greatest connections, which I did not have. So started a website with my buddy, Rob Haynes, called thegamehouse.com in about 2015, right after college for me. And it started off on something we did on the side, and then it grew into something that Rob and I can do full time now, and we just keep on growing year by year. And it came from like a lack of opportunities otherwise, and we just kind of went with it and worked on it, and got to a point where it's now pretty cool.
So how would you say that's evolved? Obviously, you said you started off kind of as a side gig, and now it's really, full go. And obviously, and for the audience that doesn't know, I was also a part of the Game House for about, I'd say, 2.5, 3 years right now in college basketball. So I know what it's kind of looks like from my perspective, but from your perspective, just the overall growth of it, like how did that transpire more specifically?
Yeah, like I said, so we started off something on the side. I was doing like landscape jobs and coming home tired and just like writing articles when I was really tired. Kind of just built up gradually. So it went from doing something where I'd write maybe a few articles a week to now I write, at least 70-ish, 80-ish articles I would say a month. Coming with that would be editing duties, managing duties, helping business wise to work, like reaching out to different like companies for sponsorship and things like that. But back in the day, we didn't have to worry about that as much because we didn't have any viewers. So we just really started building things up, and that's sort of how we evolved. We just kind of little by little just kept on writing, kept on plugging away, and got to the point where now we can be afforded those nice opportunities.
What would you say is like now you're at this point full time, everything's growing. Like what's kind of the next step within the company, or is it just more of what it's been?
Yeah, I think the next step is just continuing to get to a point where we can add to our team, add more content creators, add people who have, great talent and can kind of make us better, help us cover other areas, sports and esports. As you know, James, we do esports too, and I probably should have mentioned that as well. But just add more people who can kind of join our community and help grow this thing, and hopefully provide people with platforms to get their thoughts out, get their work out about sports. Because when we started this up, that was one of the things we wanted to do, was just create a platform where we can have people who put their opinions out there, or really, have a spot to put what they think, because it's not always easy to find those things out there.
What would you say now, you specifically, kind of your passion? And you can tell me you're wrong, but based on knowing you, seeing what you post consistently, it's heavy college football, and then leading that NFL draft, NFL coverage. Take me through like just your deepest passion, sports wise, writing wise, that you kind of enjoyed the most.
Yeah, it's definitely college football, college basketball, NFL draft. I love all three. It started off as like a huge love of college sports, college football, college basketball, and then kind of developing like, well, if I watch these guys, I should be one of the guys writing the NFL draft profiles on them, or NBA draft profiles on them, or letting maybe fans who aren't fans of college sports know like what's coming in the upcoming draft. So I do think my biggest passion is NFL and NBA draft work specifically. I love college sports so much. I love telling stories, and I love to help people learn a little bit more about some of the guys they may not know yet.
So let's dive into then. Well, I'm going to touch on all three of those if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But the college football standpoint, obviously Georgia wins back-to-back national championships. What's kind of your reaction to kind of the transition of Alabama being, and I would say just because of the longevity of it, Alabama still is the standard, but obviously Georgia has kind of matched Alabama, I would say, over the last 5 years, ever since, their first matchup in the national championship. And then, these back-to-back years for Georgia. What would you say the kind of the landscape of college football is, in your opinion, at this point?
Yeah, I think it's Georgia is going to have to be knocked off. I mean, it's back-to-back national championships. They're hitting the transfer portal hard. They're recruiting well. They actually have a decent amount of talent returning next year too. So it is, I think Georgia is the team to beat right now. You still got teams who can beat them, like Alabama can beat them on a given year. Ohio State's up there as well. Other programs, I think there's not as much parity in college football. We see, those type of teams. It takes a while for them to take over. Like Georgia, they got to the national championship against Alabama, 4 years ago,
Right.
and then they had to build it up. But they got to the point where they're now one of the top three. And a team like Clemson has kind of shifted down a little bit. They're still really good, 10-win seasons and everything, but I really do think it's between those three programs if you're looking for national champions for the foreseeable future. And I would say, I mean, it's hard to pick against Georgia after they lost so much from last year and won again this year. They just reload, man. They just reload.
How much do you think the NIL transfer stuff has really changed that dynamics? Obviously a little bit, but do you think it's had as big of a difference maker as, it's almost seem ought to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough to tell so far, but I would say it has made, and the one thing I know for sure is it's made coaches' jobs a lot harder, right? Because not only you have to recruit the high school recruits, you got to recruit the transfer portal. You have to recruit your own players to stay, and that involves using NIL money to do that. Usually, since that people can get better offers elsewhere, they will leave, as we saw with guys like Jordan Addison left Pitt for USC last year. So I think it's changed, and it will be more of like you need boosters who are involved. I mean, you've always needed that, and it's been different. Like, hey, we're paying for a stadium upgrade, or we're paying for something else to help the athletic program, and now it's just going to the players more so. So it's something that they'll have. If you have a good collective for NIL, I think you can be good. At the end of the day, though, I think the top programs are still going to be the top programs because they'll have the boosters ready to invest.
Let's pivot here. Let's go. Let's stick in the college realm. College basketball. It's been a really odd season. North Carolina comes in as the heavy favorites, and they've been completely disappointed. Maybe they'll have another miraculous run, get to a 7 seed, and just go on a run. It's kind of this type of year. Like, it doesn't feel there's anybody at the top. So just give me a rundown on what you think. Landscape wise, I feel like it's wide open. Personally. But what are you seeing from this standpoint?
Yeah, I love it. There's teams losing every day. It seems like Houston. We think like, oh, the AAC is maybe not as great this year, especially got some teams on the way out and everything. But and then they end up losing to Temple yesterday on Sunday. So it's things are crazy. I love that it's crazy. I love that there's not a top team, and I think the way the game has changed with the emphasis of the 3-pointers has really helped some of these smaller schools be able to do some damage. But I don't know about you, James, but I really like Alabama this year. I'm not an Alabama fan, but just watching them play, Brandon Miller is really unique, and I believe they went up to number 1 today in the polls too. But
I think Purdue just kept it. Barely.
Purdue kept it.
But yeah,
okay.
It's pretty much a split, but Purdue as of now, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like Alabama. I think the concern with them is always that maybe they shoot too many threes, and that could be a problem in March. But I've from everything I've seen, especially when they blew out Kentucky a couple weeks ago, even though Kentucky struggled as well. That team's for real. They beat Houston as well. So that's a team I'm kind of watching out for. I'll have to, before I do my bracket, I have to crunch the numbers and see everything. But I'm really impressed with them. And I don't know, like you said, it seems pretty wide open, and that's great for college basketball.
No, I think it's crazy that we're saying Alabama is the favorite to win the national championship, and it's not football. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and obviously Nate Oates has done a phenomenal job coming over from Buffalo now to Alabama. He's got a top 5 pick in Brandon Miller. But they're just, and their style of plays, as you mentioned, with the 3-pointers, but they're really athletic, can get up and down, really good defense. I mean, they are really built to kind of, I feel like Purdue, like maybe in a game, like kind of like yesterday against Maryland, like, 58, 55, like you can kind of hang with Purdue. I feel like Alabama's ceiling is probably higher than anybody. So I would kind of agree with you there. That, as of right now, they're the best team, but I do agree that this thing is pretty wide open. And it kind of, I was feeling like I was thinking about today, like Shabazz Napier, UConn team that went on a run. Like, it feels like that kind of year potentially down the road here. But, that makes it so much better as we know as we get into March here.
Oh yeah, I mean, anytime there's it's really cool when there's a dominant team in college basketball, like Kentucky in 2012 when they went and won the whole thing, and even Kentucky 2015 when they were undefeated heading into the tournament. When everyone watches to see them lose and see can they go undefeated? Can they maybe drop a game? But I don't know. I always enjoy when some of the smaller schools have a chance. Someone like Houston is like we talked about at the top of the standings for the AAC and really a national contender for the last several years and built it up. But I really do enjoy seeing different teams and not just always the Blue Bloods having the best shot.
Absolutely. Now let's pivot here to the NFL. So your team, the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously very impressive performance against Buffalo yesterday. They're in the Final Four, and probably the 4 best teams are in it: Cincinnati, Kansas City, Philadelphia 49ers. How do you kind of see this shaking out?
Yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes' injury is important. They think it's a high ankle sprain, and high ankle sprains are tough to play with. I think they said he's going to try to play. So that has given me even more hope for my hometown Cincinnati Bengals. They've already beat the Chiefs 3 times. The last 3 times they played them, I should say. And I was kind of more impressed with what they did against Buffalo. The offensive line had some injuries, but they were able to get some wins. So I see the Bengals going to another Super Bowl for the second straight year. And then I have the Eagles beating the 49ers. Brock Purdy has blown everyone's expectations out the water. He's played really, really well. But he's shown a little bit of weakness here and there. He's definitely not the strength of the team, but he does deliver the ball to their playmakers very well. I just think with Philadelphia, how stacked they are, both offense and defense, because of the work Howie Roseman has done as GM. I think it's going to be a little bit too much to go to the link at Philadelphia and pull off an upset. I'll take the Eagles to win that one, have Bengals-Eagles Super Bowl. And I would love to see the end. I'd love to see the offensive line if some of the guys for the Bengals come back. I picked against the Bengals last year with the Rams, but I think I'm going to pick the Bengals. I mean, especially if offensive linemen come back, I think that'll be huge. But they just seem to be on a roll. And last year they even had the ball with a chance to win in the end, and just weren't able to get it done. But I think they're a better team this year than last year. And I try not to be too much of a homer with some of these takes, but I mean, Joe Burrow just makes a believer of us all.
No, and I would completely agree with you on this. They are a better team than a year ago. Their defense, obviously, they have a phenomenal defensive coordinator. They've really flipped the script, though. And I was saying yesterday about Kansas City, but Cincinnati, you start thinking about the matchup. Cincinnati is a better team. You know what I mean? And the main difference is Patrick Mahomes. But if there isn't anybody that's very close to him, it is Joe Burrow. And having Patrick Mahomes compromised, I think you might be right there. I think they will get the edge and get yet again to another Super Bowl. NFC wise, I do think it's caught up in the air, but I think you're right though. I think the Brock Purdy-ness, I think he's shown some of these limitations over the last few weeks. Kind of started slow. He starts slow against Philadelphia in the link. I think it's going to be too much to overcome. And Hurts looks healthy. I kind of agree with you there. I think we do get a matchup in the Super Bowl. We'll see. I'm not going to give away a Super Bowl prediction here, but I do agree with you, and I do think that will be the matchup, Cincinnati and Philadelphia. And now you mentioned it at the top here, NFL draft, NBA draft. That's really your go-to. So let's just kind of go to the NFL draft here. I know it's right as soon as the season ends, it becomes all NFL drafts. That's all anybody talks about. So just give me a feel kind of on these quarterbacks. Obviously, Bryce Young's viewed as the top guy. And then C.J. Stroud's impressive performance against Georgia, I think, is helping him here. And then Will Levis out of Kentucky. How do you kind of see those three? And I feel like for me personally, the fit of a quarterback is crucial. So that being that being said.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think a lot of times we see some of these guys go into the league and then get labeled as busts. And it's like, well, were they bust or were they just in a really bad situation with a coach that didn't fit their style? Or was it just an organization that hasn't really produced many quarterbacks, don't develop young guys? So I'm with you on that. I think Stroud and Young are really, really close, I think, in terms. They're very different types of players. Young's able to play a little bit out of the pocket more and use his legs a little bit more, whereas Stroud I mean, he showed that against Georgia. He just never showed that the rest of his career. I think either one you're getting will be very, very good. There'll be questions about Bryce Young's size, especially after he was next to Mark Ingram and looked like he might be even shorter than him. But we've seen shorter quarterbacks pay off in the past. And for Stroud, it is, can he handle that? Can he get out of the pocket if pressure comes and everything? If you get either one of those guys, I think your team should be happy. Again, assuming you have the fit and everything ready to go. Levis, I think, does have a lot of the physical tools, but he's someone who has had struggles with decision making, with locking onto one receiver in the college level. So he'll need to work a little bit more. I don't think he's on the same level quite as much as Young and Stroud. But the NFL teams, they love their traits. I mean, they love guys like Josh Allen who have the strongest arms and can run, and they'll see if they can work with them. So I think there is some potential there, but I see them maybe as a little bit of a step down from Stroud and Young.
I don't know how deep you are into, your readiness for the NFL draft. I'm sure you are to a degree, obviously throughout the season, covering, watching players. Is there under the radar guys? Because that's kind of my favorite thing is like, nobody sees this guy coming. Like for me, like the one year that guy always sticks out, Cooper Kupp. Like Eastern Washington, knew about him, like he popped. Anybody for you like that kind of on your radar?
A couple of them so far. I still have to watch tons of tape, as you know. But
right, of course, yeah.
But I like some of the Kansas State guys in this draft. Deuce Vaughn, their running back, is really small, but he's also really fast and shifty. And like I'm seeing, like this is a loaded running back class, so I get that he's maybe not a first, second round pick, and also the size thing. But I think he's going to be a game changer. He can catch passes. He's Darren Sproles, who went to Kansas State. He's exactly the same player who can impact a game, or even Austin Eckler, maybe if you add some weight to him and can run a little bit better. But he's a game changer. I think his speed and open space can't be tackled. He'd be really good. And then another one I really like is their cornerback, Julius Brents. We look for teams, NFL teams look for cornerbacks that have really good length. He's about 6'4". He was matched up with Quentin Johnston of TCU in the Big 12 championship game. Had some rough snaps against him, but also played decently well. And I think someone will see his height and length and say, hey, we can turn this into something. So those are two guys I'm specifically watching to maybe get drafted a little bit higher than maybe where they're projected right now.
No, I love that. And Deuce Vaughn, I mean, how do you not love watching that guy play? I agree. Like he's gonna be like that flex guy in fantasy. Like guys always want, and then who knows? Maybe he does develop into more Austin Eckler more than Darren Sproles. Probably a combination in between. But I love that choice. So last thing here though for you, Joe. So this is kind of like the ethos of all of this is really just bring on guests, kind of get to know their background, kind of what makes everyone successful. That's really what this whole thing is kind of about here. So what I'm all about is like, what's the best version of myself, others that I work with, right? Or that I'm around. So what's the best version of you?
Oh, best version. That's a hard question, but I think the best version of me is just like being able to show my passion. I think that comes through in my work, but there's obviously things you do at work that isn't always the most passionate thing. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You get tasks like that, but the best version of me is just doing what I love, which is writing, talking about college football, college basketball, NFL draft, and displaying that through my hard work on watching the tape, on putting out all the articles on it. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I do think for anyone to be successful, I think there has to be a high level of passion in what they do, and to go with that, just the hard work.
No, I'll take that answer all day. Like you give me a person with passion and let everything kind of do the talking, right? And let your work show and all that stuff. So that's big time. Like be passionate about what you do and then go be great at it. I don't think there's anything really better than that. This is Sports Conversation with James Navalance. Joe, you're big time. I appreciate you coming on and, short notice and everything.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Anytime.
Of course.